Hey everyone. Welcome back to the Coffee Bar podcast, and we're on episode 3 now, which is kind of cool. And today I've got a little bit of a different topic that we're covering. So the previous episodes we've gone into things specifically related more to the video gaming aspect of the gaming hobby. And something that I don't believe I've said in a previous episode, but I at least have as the description on the playlist, which you will find on the channel, is I don't really want it to be exclusively video gaming, but kind of gaming as a whole. And one of the aspects of gaming that I want to look at today is actually related to trading card games, or TCGs, as I'll likely refer to throughout the episode. For those who are watching and can see the little bit of the camera on the video, you can see I did do a little bit of moving around. I did bring that up in the most recent stream that I did, which I am starting to get back into the groove of. If you have not tuned in for the stream, or last couple streams that I've done, is I'm playing the original Legend of Zelda. And really quick, I'm so unbelievably bad at it. Like, I'm bad at Elden Ring. I am really bad. I am really bad at Legend of Zelda. But it's been a lot of fun. I'm really excited to get into some of the other games. I believe I've said this on stream. And I believe I said in the previous episode, just without spoiling the game, because I was kind of wanting to keep it a little bit under wraps and kind of surprise everybody with it. But I have slowly been accumulating physical copies of various Legend of Zelda games. I could go over into my gaming drawer that has all the different games that I have, but I have Ocarina of Time, I have Majora's Mask, I have the Link's Awakening that was done on Switch. So it's like the 3D models. There's Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword, Wind Waker, Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild, and I believe 4 Swords? I'd have to confirm. That's the one. It's a GBA or Nintendo DS game. I can't say with 100% certainty. But yeah, so just kind of playing through those. Some other video gaming that I've been doing has actually been really light. Just some other stuff that I've been doing, at least off stream, and is actually going to kind of tie into what I'm talking about here on the pod today. Is I've been getting the kick again to work on painting some minis. I do post about that stuff in the Discord server. And, you know, I've spent a little bit of time away. I think part of the issue is my backlog was so bad. And I was getting kind of stressed out with the hobby. So, you know, I was able to kind of downsize the backlog a little bit. And there's some other stuff that I'm like, okay, I'm trying to sell it. Try and just get it out because it's for a game that I'm not particularly interested in, or games that I'm not particularly interested in. So, you know, kind of clearing some of that stuff out, just kind of getting the kickback. And a lot of my time actually recently has been spending time at the painting desk and really watching shows. I believe it was the last episode I did kind of talk about this as well. You will hear a lot of reference to Star Wars. I believe it would be completely safe to say that while I've made the decision to step away from Pokemon. If you want to hear about the reason for that and all that kind of stuff, is definitely check out the second episode where I go relatively in depth with that, as well as talking about kind of my experience with the living decks and just how that all went. But Star Wars has really filled that hole, and in not just like the painting hobby, but also I've been watching a lot of the shows. Like, I just finished the Clone Wars. I've watched through Rebels. I've watched through Bad Batch. I did start Tales of the Jedi. So there's a lot of content to watch through, and I've just been doing that. But to kind of get to the specific topic that I wanted to talk about with this episode is TCGs have been they've been a hobby that I was a part of for a lot of my life. So there's going to be a couple stories through this one. This is going to be the longest episode without a doubt, just because the off-stream grinding that I did that this podcast will be over is a really long chunk that I had done. I tried doing some cuts to try and see if I could see if there might have been some extra dead time that I could have kind of shrunk it down, but at least to give, if for those who were interested in kind of seeing what it was that I was doing off stream, be able to actually see that. I wasn't able to cut too much without like taking out a whole chunk of contests or whatever. But the gaming sphere, I've been involved with in some capacity since I was about 4. Which was when I started playing, doing like video gaming. Growing up, I had like a Nintendo 64, PS1, and then eventually into like PS2, original Xbox, GameCube, Wii, Xbox 360, and then going into a little bit more like the modern era of gaming, like PS4, the Xbox One, Switch, and I think that's it. I have accumulated some consoles, so some I've had since I was younger. Some of them I've bought secondhand, just so that way I could be like, I have this console. The Nintendo 64, which I'm actually looking at right now, is a perfect example of that, because I've got this 5-6 years ago, somewhere in that ballpark, and it's the first time I've owned a 64. I think since I was about 6-ish, but so I kind of, that's a hobby that there have been some periods of my life where I was a lot less active in video gaming. There were also times where I was very, very heavily into it. And you'll see that really the video game hobby is what's the big focus on stream, just being that I don't really have a setup for any other sort of like gaming hobbies. So TCGs, I started with back, I was probably 7 or 8. And that all started because of the Yu-Gi-Oh anime. And weirdly enough, I have to kind of, but I actually have a Yu-Gi-Oh hoodie that I got from a previous job. I worked at a local game store, and part of the reason I was given it is I was really the only person in the shop that had any care for Yu-Gi-Oh, and they did carry product. So it was like, free hoodie, you want the hoodie? And I was like, it's a free hoodie, like, why not? So unintentional, but it ends up working out. But Yu-Gi-Oh was my first TCG, and I played that probably from 2001, 2002 to 2010. And it was early 2010. I remember the time frame that I made the decision to walk away from Yu-Gi-Oh, and part of it was not really having a group to be able to play with. I did never go to locals out here in where I live. Is I would actually, whenever I was visiting family, is there was a shop just down the road, that would hold locals, and I would take my super janky deck and I'd get bodied, and that was actually when I got to see some of the cards that are now some of my all-time favorite cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! And so I'd go and I'd play my really bad decks, and one of the locals, I came up with my deck and I was like, all right, I'm ready to play, and I played a card and they're like, oh, so that's banned, and I was like, oh, super cool. But just like silly stuff like that. Yu-Gi-Oh, I wasn't actively playing, but I still would follow. So when like the Xyz mechanic was announced, I kind of saw a little bit of that, just like, oh, what's the state of Yu-Gi-Oh? And I'd pick up like a structure deck here, like when the Blue Eyes structure, the first one at least, came out. I picked up one of those, and I'd pick up some packs for when they finally release the cards for those of you who watched the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime, I believe it was called the Waking the Dragons arc, and it was three dragons that you would actually be able to, you use the card, and it's like, okay, I've got this cool dragon, because of something else on the field, fuse them, make a whole new thing. And I remember, like, as a kid, that arc I thought was incredible. There were probably some of like the coolest monster designs that were out at the time, and Yu-Gi-Oh! I held very, very highly. It was my only TCG at the time. So, I'm kind of like collecting a little bit here, a little bit there, and I was actually buying some Yu-Gi-Oh! Stuff. And I ran into somebody I went to high school with. I'm like, oh, I haven't seen you in, however many years. Like, how are you doing? Kind of caught up a little bit. And he roped me into Magic the Gathering. And I was like, I had a buddy try to show me Magic the Gathering a handful of years back. That doesn't really make sense to me. And he's like, come down to the locals, we'll teach you how to play. And I went down. It ended up being just a little, like, I think I had like gone home, put some stuff down, kind of grabbed a couple things since I was going back, and went and learned how to play Magic. And really, I ended up falling in love with the game. I don't know if it was the mechanics of it, or there was like this kind of thing in my brain that was just like, you need a different hobby to jump into. So I jumped into Magic, and I think that was really what started kind of turning me into more of a TCG guy. And during that time, I jumped into a couple different card games. So I was playing multiple at the same time. So I was playing Magic. I jumped into the Pokemon TCG, which was a game I could never understand as a kid, even being a huge Pokemon fan. And then jumped into when they finally rebooted the Digimon card game as it is now. And I tried a game of Flesh and Blood, and jumping ahead just a little bit, because I will divert back, Star Wars Unlimited. And so to kind of come back is, I'm playing three card games actively. I ended up dropping Pokemon for, I can't remember exactly what it was that I dropped Pokemon for. Magic, I ended up dropping because I was getting priced out of the game, and it was really hard to keep up with because there was so much product coming out, and I wasn't able to really be able to afford to get the new product to keep up with the game. So I ended up dropping Magic, and I was also losing a lot of the enjoyment of the game. I started getting really sweaty with it, even though I was playing Commander, which is supposed to be the casual format. So I I think I got rid of everything in the collection outside of a Commander deck, a sealed Commander deck, a couple other things, a sealed product that I just wanted to hang on to for, it was the Brothers War. The lore was a really big thing that kind of kept me with the game. So Brothers War is such a huge thing in the Magic the Gathering lore. I was like, I'll keep these sealed. It'll be cool to just hang on to and be able to look at and be like, yeah, they did the thing. And just a handful of singles. So that was the extent of the Magic stuff that I had. And Pokemon, I had downsized bulk, but I kept like, a deck here from when I was active, and I would pick up pack here and there afterwards. And by that point, I had fully committed to the Digimon card game as my only TCG. And so I'm playing that. Good buddy of mine who's a big Star Wars fan and is part of the reason that I'm into Star Wars as much as I am now. He isn't really a TCG player, but he's like, hey, there's a Star Wars card game. First set, they've got pre-constructed decks. One of them's Luke Skywalker, one of them's Darth Vader. He's like, I call dibs on Luke. Do you want to be Vader? And I was like, dude, let me play Vader. Let me do Empire Crime. And he's like, cool, bet. And so I jumped into playing Star Wars Unlimited, but it was very, very casual. Like, he was the only other person I played against for probably 3-4 months, and just trying to rope some other people into the game is kind of help build some janky decks just so we could actually play the game. And that was completely okay. So Magic, still had a Commander deck. I ended up selling the sealed product. I ended up selling the deck that I had constructed myself. I just ripped open the pre-con, put it in some sleeves, and that's my Commander deck. Just partially for financial reasons, as well as just the game itself continuing to turn into what it is now, which I think is another factor into why I made the decision to leave, was all the Universes Beyond stuff. So I'm doing, the Magic they got, playing Digimon. That's my only card game. Keeping up with product releases. I'm, build a couple new decks. It's like, hey, this is a cool deck idea. I want to build around this particular Digimon or upgrade decks that I've already got. And last year, around, was it October? I think it was October of last year. They released a set that was supposed to be not a tie-in, but the reference material for the Digimon set was for the Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth Hacker's Memory game. Long name, I know. I probably messed it up somewhere. And they had just done the set that tied into the Cyber Sleuth game. And it introduced, like, cards for the different tamers, the Digimon, different story events, the villains, all that kind of stuff. And what ended up happening is, because of the cards from the Cyber Sleuth set as well as the Hacker's Memory set, is it created what's called a Tier 0 format. For those who aren't super well versed into TCGs, my understanding of it, a Tier 0 is the win rate of a deck has to exceed, I believe it's 60%. And I think it looks at specifically it might be 60% of tournaments or people who register their decks. It looks at the win rates of the decks that are submitted. That piece I'm not entirely clear on, so please don't quote me. I am open to, if you know the more proper breakdown of that, definitely drop that in the comments. And because of the Tier 0, I definitely started pulling back. I wasn't interested in going into a format that was, you either play the Tier 0 deck, you play the direct counter to the Tier 0 deck, or you just lose. And that didn't sound fun and appealing to me. And one of the decks that I was actually running and was pretty infamous for playing around the locals, it was a counter to that deck. It had an effect that basically said you cannot play Digimon by effect, which that Tier 0 deck does a lot of. And so I said, I have the answer, but I've been playing this deck at locals for the last 4 months. I want to play a different deck, because it was just a little bit too much of the same. I've spent time building the deck around this cool new guy. I haven't got to play the cool new guy. So I stopped going to locals, and I probably hadn't gone to a local tournament for probably about 2 months when I played the deck that I was hoping to avoid. But after the release of, I believe it was one set after the Hacker's Memory set, I felt like I was pigeonholed into playing the deck I was trying to walk away from, because of just the current state of the meta. And the set that I was really, really excited about for some certain new cards was probably a month or two out still at that point. And I went into the matchup that I expected to do well, just being, a pretty significant counter. Ended up winning that round. I'm feeling pretty good. I think the game had started kind of coming out of the Tier 0 format, but that deck was still very, very, very strong. So still Tier 1, but there was a lot of new stuff coming in, and it was actually the cards related to the Digimon Time Stranger game. So I'm like, cool. I got first round win. I did the counter against the deck I was worried about. Went into round 2 and got bodied, just unbelievably bodied. And the deck I was playing is fast. I have actually gotten to do full combo and create the sort of lock turn 2, which is best case scenario. To speak a little bit of mechanics without calling certain keywords, just for those who are not as well versed into the TCG space, is the idea is your Digimon that your combo starts off with is able to digivolve, or in like the case of Pokemon, like evolve from the graveyard, or in Digimon it's called the trash. So you digivolve into one of the new Digimon, and it has the ability to play a Digimon from the trash. So you play out the same Digimon that let you digivolve from the trash. Well, you get to do it again on play. So it comes out, it digivolves. And you go into some sort of a Digimon that says 2 of your Digimon fuse together. So you make the new, it's called DNA Digivolution. So you fuse your 2 Digimon, you get the new guy. This guy says, hey, pull a guy from the trash, and you can attack with him immediately. So the trick is you get another Digimon of the same level, and you swing with them. But the cool bit about this Digimon is it has an effect that says whenever either him or the Dino Beamon, which is the name of the Digimon that plays him out, if either of them would be deleted, or so like destroyed, or and it's like sent to the graveyard type of an effect, you get to DNA it again. So you basically send the guy into, with the attack. Oh no, he would die. DNA again. So there's a lot of trash manipulation. There's trash setup. You kind of have to get into this, like, you have to set up pretty perfectly to get this, to make sure it works, as well as having the stuff in your hand. So you have two places to essentially have your resources available. So you DNA into its Imperial Dramon Dragon mode, and it says your opponent picks one guy, blow up everything else, and then attack. Well, on that attack, you digivolve again. And this is really the key to the combo. Because what he does is it shuts off Digimon and Tamers from being played by effects. So you can't just, if you have a guy that's like, hey, play an Agumon from hand without paying the cost, you can't do that. Or if you have a Digimon that says, hey, play a Tai Kamiya, for the homies who have seen the original Digimon series, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. You can't do that either. And so you create this kind of lock on your opponent from certain effects, and then you just go, hey, your life total, drop 1. Oh, you dropped a life total, blow up your last guy. So it's this crazy powerful board control, and it tells your opponent certain game mechanics that you have probably built your deck around, you are now no longer able to do for a turn. So it's in some situations I had seen where, I do this full combo. They might push something out to the board. They do a combo, blow up my stack, or my multiple Digimon that have digivolved together, send it to the trash. Well, I combo again because it's hand and trash manipulation. And I'd been playing the deck for so long. And usually when I would walk into locals is a lot of people would be like, "You're playing that deck, aren't you?" And I go, yeah, you know how I am. So I had to kind of explain just to that. And I think the part of the reason why that explanation is necessary is it is going to tie into a little bit of the previous point as well as a point that I'm going to make here in a moment. But I have the capability with that deck to do that combo and do a lot of damage to my opponent's ability to play the game turn 2 at the earliest. It is something that I have done, partially with some setup assistance from my opponent. That starts getting into a little bit of the nitty-gritty for like how the game plays, and this isn't really a how to play Digimon kind of thing. I don't want to spend too much time on that aspect, so I'll kind of gloss over briefly. But the life total is actually the top 5 cards of your deck. So after you draw your hand, you keep it, you take the top 5, you don't look at them, and when you attack, the life total is you hit security, and either your Digimon fights the Digimon there, or you might have a card that says, hey, you know, do something to interact with your opponent's board, or maybe you get to play something for free. Or in the case of tamers, which are the humans that are partnered with Digimon, is most of the time is you get to play them for free. Tamer that I ran in the deck said, hey, set up your trash. Long story short. So that just kind of help expedite the combo, but I am able to get some sort of advantage with a card to the hand. So really quick, just run over with some of the game mechanics. I have a really fast game plan with the deck. And the deck that I played that round 2 did not let me establish my board. And even if I was able to get that combo, all of that damage was just completely essentially just kind of brushed off. And I was like, that's cool, I guess. And I kind of sat there and went, well, that's not enjoyable. So I would still play after the locals was done. I'm feeling discouraged. I'm not really happy with the state of where the game's at the time, and just was like, I'm gonna wait until the ban list. There was one that was. There was an announcement that a ban list was coming after the World Championship. Like, I'll wait for that. I'll wait for the set that I'm really excited about, which was tied with the Digimon Labor. Wow, not Digimon Labor. Digimon Liberator webcomic / novel. And it was a bunch of support for the characters that they've been giving support to throughout the various sets. I was like, okay, this is awesome. You know, I'm waiting for that. There's going to be some cool stuff. I'll be able to juice up a couple decks that I've already got. I'm going to be able to build a couple new decks. This is going to be sweet. And build, you know, I get everything upgraded and kind of like, I'm not really feeling this deck anymore. Kind of, you know, to essentially take it apart, focus more on these decks. I'm not playing as much, so I downsized decks some more, got rid of some bulk. And come the ban list, I had set up a little bit of an an expectation for this is what I want to see in the ban list. And if the ban list does not have this certain thing as a minimum, I am okay with walking away from the game. And ban list comes out. It's nowhere near helpful to the state of the meta. And at that point, I said it's time to walk away from Digi and downsize decks a little bit more. And I do intend to downsize a little bit more. I do still have some decks for whenever I meet up with some of the friends that I made through playing that card game. Just so that way, if we want to do like a friendly local tournament, not, independent from a game store, but just all get together, play some card games, kind of hang out and joke and stuff. Completely okay with. But going to local tournaments or trying to enter things like Digimon's Evolution Cups or what's the other Ultimate Cup, I think is one of the other like online events. That's not something that I'm interested in. And it was about that time that I sort of said I'm done with TCGs. And there's the TCG space has also been tainted very heavily by the things going on because of the Pokemon TCG and now getting hit has been getting hit for a little while, the One Piece TCG. Digimon was actually starting to go through a little bit of it. I believe I've heard that the Gundam card game has gotten it. Magic has had the issue for a while, but with scalping. And I would go so far as to say that now I am more of a collector than a player. And there is an asterisk to that, which I will get back to, because there is a small aspect that I do still play, but we'll put a pin in that just for a moment. But on the collection side is I have three binders that I have for collections. I have a Digimon binder, which is essentially for Digimon and or characters that are among my favorites, and actually a handful of them are in some way, shape, or form tattooed on me, except for one, which hopefully I can get soon because I'm itching for another tattoo, not gonna lie. But yes, it'll be, like Digimon or characters that I care about. There's a handful of pages that are tied to the cast from the second season of Digimon. There's a page with these cool promo, like alternate arts that I got from a premium Bandai order for the fourth season, and some other, like I got another P Bandai set with some like really, really special alternate arts, and I have a whole page for those, and even just a page where it's like, this guy just looks cool, he's going in the binder. Oh, that Digimon, that's a really good art, going in the binder. Like kind of just a collection of like this is cool stuff from the Digimon card game, and add with it the, hey, I think this Digimon, this Digimon's cool, or this character's cool for whatever reason. I have them in the binder. I also have actually 3 Yu-Gi-Oh binders. One of the main binder is a couple of Yu-Gi-Oh archetypes that are my favorites, or like among my favorites, and a lot of it mostly for nostalgia, but jump in just very, very quickly to when I was talking about going to locals when I was younger, visiting family, and seeing some of the Yu-Gi-Oh monsters that are now among my favorites. Those are, I actually own copies of those cards, and I have them in the binder. So it's for like Black Wings. There's for the folks that have watched Yu-Gi-Oh GX growing up, Elemental Heroes, Crystal Beasts, and I've still got a little bit of space left in the binder. Not sure how I'm going to fill out the rest of it, but the other 2 binders, one of them is the Dark Magician Girl binder, which I got the binder and the deck box because I was actually thinking about building a Dark Magician deck. Maybe I will, I don't know, but it's got all the different cards for Dark Magician Girl and Dark Magician kind of mixed in. And then in the back is actually from when I was a kid, the structure deck that came out that had the Dark Eradicator Warlock as the cover. So it was like the Spellcaster structure deck. I have that in the back along with a couple of cool tokens that have Yugi on them specifically, or like somehow are tied to the original series. So it's kind of a really themey binder that just happens to have Dark Magician Girl on the front. And the third binder, which is funny now that I'm actually saying out loud that I have 3 binders, but one of this one is the most filled out binder, and this is probably also for, if not my favorite, my second favorite archetype, and it's Cyber Dragons. For those who watch Yu-Gi-Oh GX, which that was a big favorite for me growing up. I was a really big fan of that era. Zane Truesdale used the Cyber Dragon deck, and then after he went into his villain arc, the Cyber Dark archetype. And what this binder has is the different Cyber Dragon or Cyber Dark structure decks. And I think it was, I went so far as it was basically, I cracked the structure deck, and it was almost as if the structure deck itself just got put right into the binder. And being that it's my favorite art, or among my top 2 favorite archetypes for the game, is being able to have that kind of fill that out. And I think there were three structure decks that went into the binder, and then the last handful of pages are just some extra Cyber Dragon stuff that weren't in the structure decks. But it's like, this is a cool guy. Maybe it was seen in the anime, but just didn't really, wasn't really good in like the competitive meta. But it was more like the nostalgia that I wanted to make sure that those cards were in the binder in some way, shape, or form. And that's in the IP Masquerena. If you have any desire to look up the art for it, definitely recommend it. But I ended up getting the binder, the playmat, and the deck box, and it's kind of weird that it worked out this way. But the Cyber Dragon deck that I do have is in the IP Masquerena deck box. The Cyber Dragon stuff's in the binder, so it's all kind of matching. If Konami decides to release a playmat with a binder and a deck box that has something Cyber Dragon related, I can move everything, but then I have no idea what I'm going to do with the IP Masquerena stuff, so it's fine. But yes, and then I've got a Pokemon binder, which I did end up unfortunately having to sell a lot of what was in that binder, just unfortunately due to financial reasons. That's ultimately what it came down to, and feeling a little bit kind of contentious with Pokemon, but not really for here. I lost my train of thought. ADHD. Binders. Yes. So I do still have quite a bit of what some people would call the cardboard crack. So, I'm still very much a collector, but why do I have the asterisk on that? And part of it is there is a small aspect that I desire to play TCGs, but there's a specific way that I choose to want to play TCGs. And we'll go over here after I go over this point as to what it is that's replaced TCGs for me. And if you're in the Discord, which I will have a link to in the description, you may already know what that is, but I'll kind of go into that momentarily. But at least from the player standpoint, I've been playing on an online simulator, the GOAT and Edison formats for Yu-Gi-Oh! I was actually just last night, the night before recording the podcast, I was actually over at my local game store playing Star Wars Unlimited. It's the Twin Suns format, so think basically Star Wars Commander. So I'm still playing a little bit. So would that still technically make me a card game player? And yes, in a way, which is why there's the asterisk as to like the focus on collecting. But my perspective for how I want to play TCGs is I want to be able to play very casually. And I think one of the reasons why TCGs have lost their magic is Yu-Gi-Oh! I think is the biggest offender to this. Digimon is falling into this trap. And you can make the argument that Pokemon and Magic are very similar to the, have a similar issue. And deck building for TCGs has gotten to be a lot more engine slop. You might have a theme that the deck has. And speaking specifically for more meta things, Digimon is able to skirt it in a little bit of a way because of their focus on archetypes and how they kind of tie in. So But there's also, with this like engine slop, is you might have kind of a theme that you build around, and it's like, okay, I've got, say, 10 cards for this archetype, and that's kind of your focal point. Well, because of a certain trait or thing that the archetype as a whole has, well, I'm able to include these 4 cards, which are able to combo with it, whether it's like searching for the card, or maybe some sort of a different avenue that you can take to still be able to continue the combo. Well, then you have the generics for doing like control, so like kind of counter spell effects, or card draw, which is an extremely valuable resource in TCGs as a whole. Single target removal, board wipes, a little bit of kind of TCG lingo. Target a single thing, blow it up, or hey, everything on the board, blow it up. Like it's kind of certain effects like that. And so then you have like your generic stuff, you have the engine that feeds in here, and then you have a secondary engine that you can fall back on that can kind of get you back on track. Well, maybe because you're running these 2 engines, now you can run another engine. And that's kind of what TCG deck building has become for a lot of different card games. And generic cards are good to an extent, because there are those consistency things that you need in order for your deck to function. Search for this card that allows you to start this sort of a combo. Draw cards so you have the ability to potentially have a way to extend your combo. Just like different things like that. I'm definitely not as active in this space, and I think by stepping away from being not as active in TCGs, is my deck building perspective has kind of faded. And I'm also looking at it from when I was really doing a lot of my deck building was for Digimon, which is a very different deck building process than it would be like building Yu-Gi-Oh! Or building Magic or Pokemon, or I've only played the game once, but Flesh and Blood, and then it's also going to end up being different from Star Wars Unlimited. So there's not really a one-size-fits-all plan for deck building across the board, and especially with different formats, because you have different legality pools and stuff like that. It's just really hard to really find. You have to look through different resources to figure out what are the combos that you have available. You also have to account for ban restricted lists. You have, like, there's so many different things. But like, what am I doing at least for playing? Godin Edison, which are some older formats for Yu-Gi-Oh! I've also got built a couple of decks for the advanced format of Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm working on another one, which is actually partially because of when my sister briefly played Yu-Gi-Oh! It was actually a deck that she ran. We kind of split out the Yu-Gi-Oh! Stuff between each other, and I was definitely definitely a lot more into the game as she was. So I think the way it kind of worked out, and I could be misremembering this, But because I was a little bit more entrenched in it, is I kind of got first dibs. But so then when it came to trying to deck build for her, is it was a little bit of like the kind of leftover stuff. And again, part of the reason that I say I could be incorrect is it, as I'm saying it out loud, is it kind of feels a little bit scummy on my side, and I'll 100% like take responsibility. Like I was kind of a dumb kid. I think in ways all of us were. But with the resources that were available, I did try to help build decks that were at least able to do something, even though she had less access to the good generic stuff, and just kind of tried working with what was there. And it was funny, I was so into Yu-Gi-Oh! Is my stepdad actually bought a structure deck at a shop, I can't remember exactly where, and I'm like, I got a new deck, and he looks at me and he goes, no, hands it to my sister, and I'm like, no. And like I was just bummed out, because I was like, oh, like it's got the cool, that same structure deck that I have in the Dark Magician Girl binder, that's the structure deck that's in there. And it was the structure deck that evaded me for a long time, because my stepdad basically was like, you have plenty of Yu-Gi-Oh cards yourself. This is your sister's. And he basically like turned to her and he's like, this is yours. Don't give that to him, kind of a thing. And like, I don't think she ever actually like played with the structure deck, but it was kind of that thing there. And as siblings tend to do, I think she kind of was like, I have the cool structure deck and you don't. And I was like, you suck. But I have the advanced decks, but kind of actually tied in with the structure deck that I've essentially collected in the binder, is something that I've also done and spent a little bit of time last week with, is downsizing Yu-Gi-Oh! Bulk and keeping structure decks and miscellaneous cards that are ones that I care about more. And what I've actually decided to do is those structure decks that I have had since I was a kid, and I will have to fill out a handful of spots for different decks, just things getting traded, things getting moved between decks, all this kind of stuff, is I'm actually working on collecting a limited amount of those structure decks and have all the cards complete, and it's gonna all have the same set number, so it'll be like structure deck 2, it's gonna be SD2 dash whatever, and it's the exact quantities, and everything's gonna be first edition if I have first edition. And it would basically be like, you pick up the deck box, open it, and in sleeves is going to be the structure deck as if you open that structure deck today, kind of a thing. And part of that is just being able to kind of have that cool thing and be able to look at some of that cool stuff from like when I was younger and a lot more active with the Yu-Gi-Oh card game. And I've also realized that Digimon was really one of the things that kind of helped me realize this is I like playing things that are thematic. That's why with certain decks is if it was like from the anime is it had to be Digimon that Digimon specifically digivolved into, and just that line as it was in the show. So for those who watched the second season of the Digimon Adventure series, is one of the decks is around Davis and Vmon along with Ken and Wormmon. And this was the season that DNA Digivolution was introduced, so the Digimon Fusion. And one of the decks that I had, it was Vmon, Wormmon, Digivolve into XVmon, Stingmon, DNA into Pyldramon, go into Imperial Dramon Dragon, Imperial Dramon Fighter, Imperial Dramon Paladin. And it's, I think, two of the Digimon in the deck are still ones that Vmon digivolve into in the show, but it's like only Davis and or Ken Tamers, and in some aspect I believe it's every card in the deck except for maybe one or two has some sort of an artwork that ties into Davis and Vmon or Ken and Wormmon. Like, this is my Davis and Ken deck, essentially, is kind of the thing. And I like playing pure archetypes. And Digimon really helped me kind of realize that, and that's why with the advanced Yu-Gi-Oh decks that I do have is if I took them to a tournament, I'm getting unbelievably smoked. The homie that I've actually been playing Yu-Gi-Oh online with is, the best way he described it is they're tier Z. Like the deck's not, like, they're not good. And that's completely okay with me. And I want to work out kind of deck building rules across to kind of keep all of these advanced decks kind of a similar level, especially if I want to go and play casually with other players, if I get that sort of kick. But it's pick an archetype, and if I had to guess a percentage, it's like 85% of the main extra and side deck have to be that particular archetype. And then there's, maybe 10% is more generic stuff, but it has to have some sort of a trait that aligns with that main archetype. And then the last 5% is kind of completely separate, but it takes away a lot of the possibility of, oh, well, I'm running this deck, well, I can squeeze in, all the, these 3 different engines, and then also run all the generic stuff, so that way you can't do anything. Like, that's the thing that I really want to avoid, because that doesn't sound interesting to me. I would rather be like, I play my Blackwing Gale the Whirlwind, and do the cool thing and make the Blackwing Armor Master and do whatever other cool thing and be able to actually do. I get to play a Blackwing deck, not a Blackwing deck. Like that deck where it's running maybe 15, 20 cards that are specifically Blackwing, and then everything else is just, yeah, there's some zombies and there's some robots and there's knights and whatever, what have you. So that's been kind of like that. I'm working on a deck for Twin Suns. It's gonna end up being episode 5 themed for Star Wars Unlimited. I still have the couple decks for Pokemon. I don't really intend to do any additional deck building. I'm kind of in a... I do have a deck for like the... No, I think some of the stuff actually rotated out. So I would actually have to adjust the one deck that I do have and could potentially make it standard legal, but not overly a high priority. I've got the pre-con for Magic. Don't really intend to make any upgrades to that. I don't intend to downsize a little bit more on Digi stuff. But I've gone over a lot of TCG stuff. I did talk a little bit about like the TCG stuff having been, or TCG space having been really corrupted by like the scalpers. Prices are going up for alt art, so it makes collecting harder. It does make it a little bit easier for players to get cards because the bulk is just getting gotten rid of, because that's not really what's like chasing, that's not where the money's really coming from. And the health of the meta, because there's so much constant release, and this can be said across all TCGs, because you have to account for the release of the set, like a regular booster box set. Well, in case of certain games, they have a secondary box that's where you can get the shiny cardboard, and then there's potential like pre-constructed decks that release alongside it. There are some of the card games that have, hey, you can do a pre-order for this special box that have these really nice alt arts and other miscellaneous like paraphernalia that can be utilized for in the TCG space. And it's a lot to keep track of, with balance for the games themselves feeling like it's really gotten pushed to the wayside. And that feels bad, because partially because this is a space that I've spent so much of my time and energy in, whether it be going to locals, deck building, testing, getting, actually acquiring the cards. So it's like the time and money investment and all of that. It does feel bad to look at TCGs as a whole and see that they don't have that same magic. And it's getting even the casual spaces. I'm pointing at you, Commander, for Magic the Gathering, but there's so much being injected in that cards that just, they have that one little bit maybe it's that one extra resource that you have to pay to get the effect, or it's missing that one line of text that can make it good, or even just the bulk that just fills the packs, there's so much extra cardboard that comes out that just does nothing, and that's a bummer, you know. And there's the constant injection of new stuff, so it just pushes older stuff out, and you know, corporations got to make money, but still feels bad, especially if you have an attachment. It's like this one card, it does this thing and it's not good, but it's so funny when it works. Well, now you can't do the funny thing because it just doesn't exist. And then you also have to account for in certain card games you have rotations. So, you know, chunks of cards will no longer be legal, and you know, there were these different things that kind of make card games not really feel good to invest your time into, which is why I'm going to give the piece of advice for those who do choose to play TCGs. And I 100% I'm not putting this video out to disincentivize you from playing TCGs, but for those who are in the space and will continue to be in the space, my one piece of advice is buy singles. Yes, it's fun to crack packs. Yes, it's fun to crack booster boxes, but it's expensive, and it's kind of a, sometimes you gotta pay the high price tag, but it's better to pay that price tag and guarantee it than spend potentially 2-3 times that and now have, you know, 200-300 extra cards laying around that you don't really need. So buy singles to all my TCG players out there. But what's replaced TCGs? You know, it's I've got to have a hobby to indulge in and be able to, you know, like get out of the apartment and go see homies and stuff. And as I said a little bit earlier, is if you're in the Discord server, you'll probably have seen this be made somewhat clearly. It's tabletop, and specifically Star Wars Legion, Star Wars Shatterpoint, and Blackout. And if you've gotten this far in the podcast, we still have a little bit, but I do want to say thank you for sticking around. This is actually an announcement that you might have seen this already and might have a question. But I am announcing that tomorrow, the day after this podcast goes live, I will be uploading the first video on the side channel, which as of right now is TheCoffeeBarr Tabletop. And what that channel is going to be, very, very briefly, is just talking about my experience within the tabletop hobby. I think there will be some crossover between the podcast as well as that channel, so you may see a little bit of intermingling of the two. But tabletop has, in a way, been a small factor into my choosing to walk away from TCGs. Tabletop, it costs a little bit, but there's something in tabletop that TCGs do not have, at least TCGs that I have played. And I think one of the biggest benefits is if you buy a box of, just to pick on Star Wars Legion, since it's my game, or like go-to game. If I go and I buy a box of Clone Trooper Marksman, when I open that box, I have Clone Trooper Marksman, and I have the unit cards that I need to play them. The only caveat to that is online. This does apply to a couple different tabletop games, but at least to just talk exclusively about Legion for a moment. On the AMG website, if there was a point rebalance or a rework of a certain keyword, or maybe for whatever reason the marksmen were actually given a new keyword, or one was taken away, maybe the dice that you're throwing are different, you would be able to get the print to play version of those cards online. And there are some other tabletop games that do have the ability to do like a print and play option. And I think that's a phenomenal thing. But there's no guesswork with you're not gambling to see, you're not gambling for what you're going to get in the box. You buy the box, you get the box. This is what you get. And that's something I really wish TCGs did more of, is just you get the stuff you need, and it would help the players. Now with tabletop, you do have the additional sort of caveat where your time investment is getting the minis assembled, getting them painted, and there's the list building that you have to do. But the painting portion of the hobby is also another thing that's really gotten my interest. And it's a cool creative outlet, and going with tabletop is, yes, there are tournaments that you can play in and things like that. I've actually played in a couple of small tournaments for Star Wars Shatterpoint, but even then I still don't play the meta. I don't have a lot of Shatterpoint, but I'm able to make kind of themey lists. And that's what I do for Legion as well. I'm primarily a Grand Army of the Republic player, so it's clone troopers. And if you look at the way that I've painted my army, is I've got, some are painted in the battalion that serves under Obi-Wan Kenobi and Commander Cody. I've got a bunch of other ones that are the 327th with, funny enough, neither of the leaders for that battalion are in Legion. I do also have some of the clone troopers that are painted like the 501st, so the ones under Anakin and Captain Rex and Ahsoka Tano. But not having a couple of those minis, but I'm able to build lists where it's like, hey, this is my 212th list. Cool. There is a battle force that you can do where it's like specifically 212th, and it's a much narrower building requirements, and you actually get access to certain order cards that are tied specifically to that battle force. I have my list doesn't really follow the battle force, but that's also partially because the list that I typically play is in a way themey, but it's actually also technically illegal. And that's because I have two special named characters attached to a squad, and I'm only able to attach one of those characters to the squad. Thankfully, the group that I play with is much more like on the casual side, so we just like one of my homies is he has a rebel army and it's all Endor themed. So everything's painted up like episode 6. I have another homie who's got a droid army that he's painting up like they're on Kashyyyk. And there's this overarching theme over the army. And is the list going to be any good? Probably not. I can tell you for sure, my list is not good. I do not think I have won a single game with the list, but I get to do the themey thing. I have, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Commander Cody. I have the technically illegal squad they're the squad that works directly under Cody. And then I've got I've got the big tank that just kind of runs through, starts blasting, but that's where the fun of it is. Like, I have the ability to, if I want, if I have all the models for it, pivot over into something where it's like, all right, I can play something a little bit more like meta, not meta approved, but like built for the meta, I think is the right word, or right phrase. But I've looked at those meta lists and those don't look interesting. And I'm also not looking to go and play in a tournament. So, like, why would I build something meta when I could just, hey, I'm playing a bunch of clone troopers that are on Geonosis running around, or hey, I'm playing Rebels defending Echo Base, or I'm playing Empire storming Echo Base. Like, that's the stuff that gets me excited. And that's what my enjoyment of the hobby is, and I'm able to do that better than I am with TCGs, because I'm able to make certain interactions work on tabletop, whereas in TCGs, if a certain archetype for maybe like a character or a Digimon or a small group of monsters in Yu-Gi-Oh! Or a particular Pokemon has this really cool like attack, if I don't have cards that allow me to kind of get the engine moving, that's not a deck that's going to do anything. Whereas tabletop, yes, you might have these individual acting units that have a small bit of cohesion, but they work very independently of each other. Well, because it's like the same faction, they have a certain thing that lets them work together. Like, it's that cohesiveness that allows them to work, whereas you have to sometimes wait for that cohesive thing to work if you want it, especially if you wanted to stay with an archetype in TCGs. Something else that tabletop does really well that TCGs are not able to do as effectively. I had briefly brought up about the print-to-play option that you have for if a certain update was done to a particular unit, is you can print the updated cards at home, giving the ability to make sure that you're playing with the most up-to-date rules, and whenever they do any sort of like point balances, or in the case of the rebalance of Shatterpoint, there were certain cards for characters that certain effects were changed or maybe added, maybe removed, different things like that. Whereas TCGs, in order to get the errata text out, yes, they could put the erratas up on their website for reference, but if for whatever reason you're at a tournament, likely not able to have phones like on the table, they, TCG companies have to reprint the cards, and who knows how long that process ends up going. The rules team ends up making the adjustments, and then it has to like get sent off. If maybe they have to get new art for the card or whatever other additional aspects. So getting those erratas is harder to get into the hands of the players, who really need to have access to that, especially if that is a key component for whatever it is that they're playing. Again, tabletop, it puts a little bit more power in the player's hands to be able to, yes, the player is responsible for making sure that they do have the updated cards and make sure that they prepare for tournaments or locals or even just like friendlies, just so that way everybody is playing on the like an even field. But it just makes it a lot easier. Also, something that tabletop doesn't do that I'm aware of, based on my experience, are banning or restricting certain units. The point rebalance can happen. There was also, as I was just talking about, the Shatterpoint rebalance, is they went and neutered some effects, they buffed some effects, they added some things, they changed certain verbiage and for different units, because there were some that were too powerful. But even when it was in the meta where it was these two leaders were just at the top, and it's you play these leaders or you play the counters to them, the only time there's really a ban is really just assigned to the tournament organizer. They may say, okay, you can play, anything in the game, but you are not allowed to include like these particular leaders, or if you play this certain character, you are only allowed to play this character with X, Y, and Z attached to them. So they're able to adjust the power level accordingly, and that's just because maybe the meta is in an unhealthy situation. Whereas TCGs, in order to really fix the meta for tournaments, is you have to comply with the ban restricted list. And there are communities that will take certain additional levels for like one-off events, where they might be like, okay, this particular section of cards are banned, or these are limited further, or some additional kind of caveat. But if you go to, for Yu-Gi-Oh, like a YCS, or you go to whatever the name of the Magic the Gathering tournaments are, because those have changed names probably 7 times in the last 2 years, or you go to like a Pokemon regional or a Digimon regional or whatever, those rules don't, like, you follow the ban restricted list, and that's how you play. There's no, you can't deviate. You can't be like, hey, your deck's too strong, this is supposed to be casual. Like, it's not, that's just not a thing. But tabletop doesn't ban units. So in some cases where maybe a new edition comes out, maybe some older models may phase out, but that's like the company is like, hey, maybe they issue a statement, maybe they don't, but the edition changes, and it's like, this this unit for this army, this unit, blah 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 blah. They will no longer be produced. They will no longer be like supported in the game, and maybe it's because the one of the units that they're intending to release down the road may actually be like that unit just approached differently. So instead of it being, I don't even know a good example for it, because I know of some units that are removed from Star Wars Legion, but I don't know that there's like certain ones that are replaced. But I know one perfect example is Emperor Palpatine and the Imperial Guards. They were removed from Legion because Palpatine typically wasn't on the battlefield with the Stormtroopers and Vader and Snow Troopers and stuff like that. So there are certain things that will maybe kind of incentivize the company creating the game to remove certain models and stuff from the game, but it's not really because of an issue with the balance, and it's not something where it's, oh, this unit is too strong, it's banned from tournaments. It's just straight up, it's not something that's eligible for the game anymore. And I think it provides a little bit of comfort in knowing that you buy the model, you're going to be able to play with that model for quite some time. Like a clone trooper infantry, I don't think there's ever going to be a time that I would not be able to use my clone trooper infantry. There are new sculpts, so I can use those instead because they look better. But I can still use the old models because they do the same thing. And I think that's a huge benefit. And part of the reason why I, at least as of right now, I favor Tabletop over TCGs. As I said earlier, I will still dabble in certain things related to the TCG hobby. It is just going to be a lot more controlled because I know what it is that I want to do in terms of that hobby. I know how I want to be able to play it, and that's not the way that I intend to play TCGs is not at a local level and playing in those kind of tournaments. It's just, oh, we just got done playing D&D. Hey, let's smash a game of Star Wars Unlimited, or hey, let's smash a game of Commander, or hey, to one of the homies that I play Tabletop with, who actually I met through Digimon. Hey, let's sit down and play a game or two of Digimon. Hey, I'm meeting up with my friends that I played Digi with. We're just gonna have a fun little like local get together and just play cards, or meet up with a buddy and it's old Yu-Gi-Oh structure decks. Let's pair them up and have fun. So that's really my approach with it. If you are interested in learning how it was I got into Tabletop, I will be putting up a video on the Tabletop channel. Like I said, I will have the information for that. Will be showing as the Tabletop channel as a collab. I will also make sure to include a link in the description for you to check that out. Probably not going to be like a super consistent upload. It's just going to kind of be talking about Tabletop stuff, and whether that is things like how do I paint certain certain units? Why do I play certain factions? Maybe things that I want certain factions to be able to do. That's going to be kind of stuff that's geared on, that's more for the tabletop channel. So definitely do check that out if you are interested. But yeah, that's kind of where I stand with like TCGs and tabletop, and kind of why one is favored over the other. And scalpers have really done a number on the TCG space, just with like cards being so expensive and product being hard to get. There's constant videos of people brawling in stores and the whole thing with like the Pokemon vending machines. There was the stuff going on with like Pokemon cards at Target. Like it's not a good space to be around, and even just as a player, I felt kind of disgusted to be, tell people that I played TCGs because that it was just getting such a bad rap. So but unfortunately that's just kind of the state of things, and we can just kind of take it as it comes, and hopefully certain companies will take particular actions to kind of help mitigate some of that. I do have to give Bandai credit for doing this with the One Piece TCG. Is at the, if I remember correctly, it was Bandai. It was a certain type of Bandai store. It was like it's some sort of an affiliated store, like certain stores that have product. And what would happen is when somebody would go to buy a booster box, so the customer would pay for the box, and the shop was actually given the okay to cut the wrap off of it. So all those people who would buy sealed boxes and just hoard them and be able to like sell them on the secondary market, well, because it's technically not a sealed box, they are not able to get as much money out of it. So it was one of those things to help kind of disincentivize that sort of behavior. And I think that was an absolutely genius move that Bandai did. And I think if like, certain other games did things kind of along that line, I think that would help the space quite a bit. I think there's other issues within it, especially related to particular individuals that could be deemed responsible for this kind of blow up of interest in sealed product, and for essentially different games. And it's like target this, or just building hype for those, so people start wanting to go after those particular games. I think that's really a lot of where there has to be a change, but I doubt that it's going to come from that. I think it's going to come a lot more from the corporate side, and at least somewhat try to help with allowing people who genuinely want to buy and collect the cards within the game, for people who actually want to have them, as opposed to buy the product, rip it, and just use it as a way to just make quick money. So it's very interesting, kind of where where the space is at this time, and all we can really do is kind of just hope for some, better things to turn around for the better for those who are fans of the IPs that these TCGs may be attached to, and just kind of go from there. Also, can we talk about how there are so many TCGs? And like, there's a lot of tabletop games, but I believe it was a week or two ago was the official announcement that there's a Naruto TCG coming out. I believe it's the announcement said sometime in 2027. And then you also have on the horizon, there's the Cyberpunk TCG. There's a Pal World TCG. There's another big name TCG that's coming soon that I can't recall the offhand. But then you also have the ones that already do exist, where it's like, your big names, your Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, One Piece, Digimon, Riftbound, which really came out hot. There's a Neopets TCG. There's Alestrals, which has been around for a few years. Apparently, I think it's GamerSupps has a TCG that's like a collaboration with a lot of different streamers, which that's a really cool gimmick. You also have like Weiss Schwartz, there's Union Arena, there's the Gundam card game, there's Bandai's got a bunch. Battle Spirits Saga, I think is the name of it. It was like attempted to bring back here in the States, didn't really succeed. The Dragon Ball card game is getting a resurgence. There's a ton, and those are kind of the TCGs that a lot of people think of. From my understanding, please do correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they're kind of what TCGs are perceived as for the most part. So when this is the part where I asked if you to correct me if I'm wrong, but when somebody brings up a trading card game, the thinking is it's a set releases and it's in a box. You open the box, it has booster packs. You open the booster packs, you get the cards for the new set, and then using the cards from like the new set along with stuff that is already released and still legal, you construct a deck, and that's what you used to play with. And I do know that there are deck building card games, so things along the lines of Tanto Cuore. That's the only one I know of, and it's because I own 2 boxes of it. Haven't played it. It kind of things along the lines of, say, like Cards Against Humanity, where you have everything you need to play the game in the one box, and that's not really what TCGs are, because I guess it doesn't really incentivize the trading part. So it's, I guess there's that, but like kind of I think it's safe to say that when somebody brings up a TCG, is they think of booster packs, new set release, kind of stuff like that. So it's TCGs is, I think, in a really weird spot. Since we are kind of wrapping up at least like the TCG tabletop talk, question of the day for you is, what TCGs and or tabletop games do you play? I'm very curious to see what it is that y'all are kind of interested in, or like what it is you play. If you want to go into as much detail as saying like I'm a competitive Shatterpoint player, or I'm a competitive Unlimited, Star Wars Unlimited player, or I have gone to like Pokemon regionals. Like, if you want to go into that much detail, you absolutely can. I'm a little bit curious just to see what people's levels of engagement with the different hobbies is. And so that's your question of the day. Definitely drop that in the comments below. But what stuff am I doing outside of streams and YouTube? Just kind of jump back is like, I'm really excited about being able to sit down and play through the Legend of Zelda games. As I said at the beginning of the podcast, is I haven't really spent a lot of time doing gaming, at least on video games, but been focused a lot more on like watching TV shows and working on stuff at the painting desk. And might be nice to just sit down, and even if I'm not playing Zelda off stream, which I probably am going to try and keep to an absolute minimum, I just try and leave everything for like Zelda on stream, unless it ends up being something where it's like, hey, we're gonna mix it up, we're not gonna play Zelda for a little bit, we'll play something different. And Zelda is also one of those franchises that I feel like, especially since I'm streaming the first, so kind of not first, but first playthrough of Zelda. And the reason for that is 6, no, I don't think it's been that long. I think 5 years ago, I played the first Zelda. I did not finish the original Zelda, so just like going through, I went up through, I think maybe Dungeon 6, and then just dropped the game. I just never ended up going back through and finishing it. So I kind of call this Zelda run the first playthrough, because this is the playthrough I intend to finish. And I think because I would be playing through the entire game, I think it's safe, I do think that it's safe to say that this is a first playthrough. So I'm really, really excited to be doing this. I've collected the games, and I know my sister's played through. I don't know if she's finished through the couple games that she does own, but she has played a little bit of stuff in the franchise. And I've got people close to me that hold Zelda very, very highly, and it'll be cool to finally be able to be like, I have played Zelda, especially as someone who's been gaming for as long as I have. And even if there were times that I wasn't as active, just with different things going on in life, I just didn't really have the free time, or if I did have free time to be able to do, be able to actually like play Xbox or PlayStation or Switch or whatever, is my attention was just drawn to something else. And that was the hobby I would have rather indulged in as opposed to gaming. And that's just kind of how it worked out. And the somewhat limited number of games that I have played, because some of them were ones that you were really incentivized to go back to, and this would be things along the lines of like your Call of Duty online or your Halo onlines, or things along that kind of sphere where it's, you know, you're unlocking maybe like the new weapons or the new skins, or you're getting whatever thing here and whatever. You know, there were you know, significant amounts of time that I spent in that, as opposed to going and trying out a new game and just kind of sticking with the thing that's more familiar. And the gaming online is not really something that like kind of tickles my brain, or like tickles the happy button in my brain. And maybe it's because, I'll be completely honest, I am awful at online games. It's like going up against people who are willing to spend a lot more time online with these games than I am in any way. And the last gaming that I did online was actually with a homie playing the new Battlefront 2, and just going online and just running around being Star Wars characters and just laughing at dumb stuff that we were doing. Like, dude, Battlefront 2 has an option where you start out as Storm. It's like a Horde mode, I think, is like the kind of the overarching name for it, or like generic name. But you start out as stormtroopers and you're running around Endor at night, and all you have is a flashlight that has a limited battery, but you know, and like you turn it off, it recharges. Well, there's like 1 to 2 players who are Ewoks. They run, and if they kill you, you turn into an Ewok, so then you go hunt the stormtroopers. Let me tell you, I was cracking up. I think I genuinely started crying. I was laughing so much because it's chaos. And if you go in with friends, I've got my headset on and I get killed and I'm shouting like, no, I thought I had a good spot. Or like the Ewok sneaks up on me and I'm running around as an Ewok, and I just hear my buddy go, no, stay away. And so I'm running around an area and he's saying that in the headset. So I'm maniacally laughing, running in a circle in that area, and he's like, go away. I hope that you better not find me. And I'm like, oh, if I find you, brother. And just poking at each other. But that game mode is such unbelievable chaos. I was just having an absolute blast. It's so much fun. I'd recommend it for people who are looking for just something stupid to play. And if you're into a little bit of like in a way, like kind of horror, because it genuinely is horrifying in that game mode, especially if you're the stormtrooper, because it's just near pitch black out there and you just are trying to navigate through this forest. You've got the flashlight and it covers about this, you know, it's just a little light, and you just hope you can find a good spot until you can finally extract. But highly recommend that. So maybe I'll play like a little bit online, but it's not a main focus. I've found a lot more of my enjoyment to be like the single player campaign kind of things, where I can just run around the world and do some side quests, do the main story, pick up some cool stuff on the way. Big fan of, I really enjoyed Skyrim. when after that came out, I've created a couple characters, and only one character have I done like all the DLC stuff. But then I've got another character that I've done some of the main story and gotten a little bit of one of the DLCs done. I started a different character years ago and got a little bit, but I was doing more side quest bits. And, you know, like games like that. There's, I'm just looking up here at the rack of games that I've got. Going through and like playing, it's been a few years since I played through it, but like Dishonored was a great one to go through, and just sometimes spending the extra little bit of time just running through trying to find all the treasure and the goodies was a ton of fun. There's that, other open world stuff like God of War Ragnarok or the 2017, essentially God of War 4, going through and just running around doing side quests and trying to get access to like the special armors, or hunting down the Odin's ravens that are kind of perched around, and just going and being able to explore the landscape and really feel like I'm getting the value out of the game that I purchased has been a lot more what my focus has been, at least for gaming. Definitely stepped away from like the first person shooters or even third person shooters. But I do still have a couple up here on my rack, as well as in my little cubby that's got some more games. But some of them are also titles that I played as a kid, or like a kid teenager, and was like, dude, this game is awesome. And it might have had like a particular character that really stuck out, or there was a certain mechanic within the game, or kind of overall feel that I found really interesting, but I just never was able to finish the game, whether it was like lack of patience for trying it, or maybe a certain section was a little bit above my like skill level, or like maybe I wasn't able to figure out a certain puzzle, like whatever the kind of reason for that is. I just never ended up finishing those games. So like the examples that I can think of are the Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter titles, both 1 and 2. And it was like I would get to a certain point, at least from the last time that I had played, and I just kind of got stuck in this spot and would spend, maybe a couple hours and try a different approach, or maybe try the different approach. Okay, it didn't quite work. Go back to the original approach, and okay, I start seeing some success, and then it falls apart. So it's like maybe just going back and just replaying through the game. And I don't feel ashamed about saying that I'm okay with playing games on easy mode. Like, I want to enjoy the games. If I'm gonna play a game that's difficult, I'll just go play Elden Ring, which still not great at, but it's weirdly, even though it's so difficult, there's something enjoyable in that difficulty. And I've brought this up to the homies that have kind of been part of why I've gotten into things that are in the Souls kind of sphere. Actually, if you watch the VODs, it's Grovnak and Hot Topic Hero. If you go find those VODs, they're Socials are in the description of that video, so definitely go check that out. You can also laugh at how bad I am at Elden Ring. But yeah, that's really just the goal, is just try and... I've got a couple piles of shame that I gotta get through. I have a reading pile of shame, since I actually moved some stuff here in my room. So this rack over here used to be along that wall there, and the shelf that was over here is actually completely off screen over in the corner along that wall. And so, but no, actually, just kidding. My books are right there. I thought they were on the other shelf, but no, that's my manga shelf. That's another pile of shame, but like more kind of collection sort of thing. But yeah, so I've got like, manga I've got to read. I've got actual books that I've got to read. I've got video games that I've got to play. Funny enough, Hot Topic Hero and Grovnak letting me borrow a bunch of movies that they have for my girlfriend and I to watch through. I have a bag of that over here that I got to get through. I've also got the painting pile of shame. I've got a bunch of TV shows I got to watch. On my anime list, I've got a bunch of anime that I'd like to eventually sit down and watch. So it's... And then, that's not even accounting for, certain things that I want to do with, like, organizing what is left of my TCG collection, or just general housekeeping within my apartment. So, like, I've got a bunch of different projects that I'm working on, and then now with, like, the tabletop channel, which, like I said, isn't going to be like a super frequent upload, but I've also slacked a little bit on this channel. I forgot to edit videos. When I'm recording this is about 6 hours before the video is going to go live. So I've been extremely distracted with just a lot of other stuff going on and completely lost track of any semblance of time. But, as I've said the last couple episodes, try and get everything back on track. Definitely am planning to stream today. Might be a little bit longer than the one I had done earlier in the week. If I can suddenly get really good at Zelda, maybe we can finish the game on stream. And if not, hopefully get close. But we'll kind of see how it goes. I'm probably gonna die quite a bit in the game, and I've been cheesing that so hard. There's a rewind feature on the Switch. I've been exploiting that, and Stu Magoo, he actually posts videos here on YouTube. He's a personal friend of mine. He'll stop into the stream and give me a hard time. He was like, I think I have this on NES. I'm gonna have you come over and play it, so you have to play Zelda without the rewind feature. And I kind of made the comment to him, I'm like, you realize I'm going to be the worst Zelda player you have ever seen in your life, on top of what you have already seen thus far. So we were getting a good chuckle out of that, but I'm excited to jump into that again on stream, which the description of that will be in the link below. Let me try that one more time. The link to my Twitch will be in the description below. I think that is a pretty good indicator that we will be wrapping up the episode. It is late. Again, just got sidetracked with stuff, so kind of last minute recording. But for those who watched the podcast or listened to it, I am more than okay with you just putting it on as background noise. These are really long episodes. I'm hoping to get them a little bit shorter once I finally get through the little bit of backlog of off-stream recordings. But truly, thank you for your time and just listening as I'm talk about just kind of whatever. And I want this podcast to be something just related to the gaming sphere as a whole. So covering TCG stuff, covering a little bit of tabletop stuff, covering video game stuff, that's going to be kind of all encompassing. Maybe board games ends up being something that gets covered here on the podcast, but hard to say. We'll kind of see how it goes. But again, thank you all for your time. Thank you for allowing me to yap your ear off about this, that, and the other. I do hope the rest of your day goes well. And as I always sign off the podcast, I always sign off the streams, and any other videos I will be signing off the same way. Take care of yourself. Be good to one another. Stay safe. We'll see you soon.